Hi, I'm County Councilor Randall Ryti. I'm here at the Los Alamos Daily Post to provide a summary of the council meeting last night, December 17th, 2024. So this was our last meeting of the even year. So we started out with some recognitions of various people. We started out with recognition of the election workers. And then we had a recognition for our outgoing clerk, Naomi Maestas. And then we had recognition for two outgoing councilors, our chair, Denise Durkix, and Councilor Keith Letch. So it gave everybody a chance to say some things to honor those that have been serving the county for so many years. And it was really nice to have the election workers there to have them be able to recognize the clerk for everything that she's done. We had then kind of regular agenda after that. Consent item had, I think, about 8 different items on it, just highlight 3 of them. So one was for microtransit software. So this will be helping with scheduling and also with some driver and staff availability. So having the software will be helping us over the next 7 years. There's batteries that have been over at the old landfill, the eco station, since I think about 20 years now. So for the Japanese US project that was here in Los Alamos. And so it actually is very costly to get rid of those batteries, sulfur sodium battery system. So it's about $1 million contract for that. That project, the initial cost basically was no cost to the county, and they were used for a long time. But then they became not useful. P&M didn't want them on the system anymore. There was also a grant for EV charging infrastructure on the consent agenda. Then we had, after that, a couple of public hearings. So one of them was a fairly routine one having to do with the council has to have a resolution of support for a grant to the state for a water line replacement, and so this is a very low interest rate loan, something less than 0.1%, and so we approved that. Then there was a minor zone map amendment for the civilian dorm. It's been called other things, women's dorm, the WAC dorm, but it's generally now referred to as a civilian dorm. The county had purchased that way back in July of 2019. And there have been lots of work in the meantime. There was about 2 years ago, we approved some option for a visitor center with some living space for park service employees. So it'll help us with the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. We approved that zone map amendment. That had gone to planning and zoning 2 different times. The second time they did come back with recommendation, and so that's what council approved their findings of fact and conclusions of law. Then we had a couple other big business items. So one was the 2024 Comprehensive Health Plan. There was a community survey that was done. I think we had about 1,000 responses on that. So a lot of responses, and that's individuals more than households. It was mailed out to households with some other follow-up. So it was over 1,000 different people responded, which is a good fraction out of the 20,000 total, because obviously children aren't responding. So it's the adult population that's the 3/4 of the people responding. So that's a good response rate. There was also a lot of follow-up interviews with a lot of different people in the community. And so it's been an effort that's been a couple of years in the making. So they had a number of recommendations from the Health Council. Some are in the near term, some are medium term, and some in longer term. So one of the key things was trying to find a regional solution for some of the provider shortages, basically by pooling among the different communities locally. There were also in the near term, there's a legislative session coming up, and there's been some proposals about some reforms to help with the shortage statewide of healthcare providers. And then locally, we've heard that housing. There was one commenter that said he had a primary care physician that couldn't find a place to live and had to leave. And we've heard of other other providers that are, professionals, skilled nurses or other professions that, couldn't find housing in the area and makes it difficult for them to work up here. So housing is definitely an issue, and then also the housing for people that are, housing insecure. So the plan uses a social determinants of health, and so, financial stress is one of the things that's also evaluated. So there's a plan. The actual recommendations are only one page if you're interested, and that was in the package last night. So people interested in seeing all the recommendations, I suggest you go look at that. One thing that was removed from the agenda last night was the MRA plan for eastern downtown Los Alamos. So the consultant to Main Street was not available last night. We did have a meeting on Monday night, and today there was a press release issued that the plan is now out and available through the end of the month for people to review and provide comments. Wildlife education and consideration ordinance. This was another pretty lengthy item, and we've been considering this item over the last 2 years primarily. So we had public comment from Mexico Game and Fish, Area Progrio back in, I think, March of 2023. We had some follow-up sessions, some education, and so council directed staff to come up with an education plan for this calendar year. So we got a report on that, how that went, how many outreach we had, press releases, other opportunities. Of course, we're leveraging our contract with the Nature Center vendor, the Parrito Education Center, for that. And we had a lengthy presentation by our new local, I guess originally born and raised, Tyler Carter, Mexico Game and Fish officer. And he talked about a lot of the issues relative to feeding and what he's been seeing this year. So there are a relatively small number of feeding sites. His opinion and the data he was showing suggested that maybe there's a relationship between some of the other adverse things with wildlife, like car accidents and sick animals with these feeding sites. We did have one member of the public question that, but that was what he presented to us. And so council ultimately voted to ask staff to continue the wildlife education, which I think everyone agreed with, and then to bring back an ordinance that would be carefully worded to basically not allow the kinds of things that he specifically talked about. And I think there'll be some stories out about that, identifying whether the specific things he saw, and I think most people agree those are things that everyone's heard you're not supposed to be doing with wildlife or even animals you don't own. You shouldn't be feeding them foods like that. So then next year, the first meeting will be primarily the usual beginning of year business items, setting the calendar and the Open Meetings Act resolution, things like that. But we're also going to have a discussion on the state legislative priorities at that meeting. And that did relate, as I mentioned, one of the things that we're looking at with the community health plan is looking at statewide initiatives for reform, particularly to malpractice. And there's a series of initiatives that Think New Mexico has. So with that, just want to wish everybody happy holidays. Appreciate having the opportunity to serve you, and looking forward to the last 2 years on my second term.